Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for DC Inno's virtual State of Innovation on Cloud Tech. I'm Alex Orfinger, Market President and Publisher of the Washington Business Journal and the sister publication to DC Inno. For anyone unfamiliar with DC Inno and what we do, Inno is part of a network, a growing network, in fact, of sites. We're currently in 16 markets with many more to come soon. And we're committed to covering and connecting local technology, startups, growth, and innovation. We do that through weekly emails, stories, events, directories, data, and more. DC Inno is continually building a portal for the region's startup and tech community. So again, I want to welcome all of you today. I want to thank you all as attendees. I want to thank our panelists. And I just want to remind all of you that you're on mute and that you should send any of your questions in the chat box, and we'll answer them at the end of the event. I hope you also check out dcinno.com to see what we're all about and sign up for The Beat, our twice-a-week newsletter. The Beat is the best way to stay plugged in to everything that's impacting the local innovation economy. In it, you'll get local tech and startup news you need, analysis you won't find anywhere else, information on upcoming events, and pretty cool job offerings, and much, much more, all in a fun and conversational manner. I'd like now to introduce Sarah Gilgore, our staff reporter for DC Inno. She's working super hard every day to bring you the innovation stories and all that you need to know each week. Sarah, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. It's nice to see you here virtually today. For those of you I don't know, I look forward to connecting with you hopefully soon. And I hope you'll all reach out to me with any stories or pitches or just to say hello.
Just to say hello. We all need some hellos during this pandemic, don't we, Sarah?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you for everything you're doing for us, Sarah.
Thank you.
Now on to our topic today, the cloud. As a result of the pandemic pushing businesses of all sizes to the cloud, we decided we needed to tackle the topic of innovation in the cloud, of cloud innovation, and the impact it's having on local startups, tech companies, and businesses. We have cloud experts here to discuss cloud adoption and migration, best practices, maximizing and improving cloud process, and how businesses can use the cloud to increase innovation and sustainability. Just a reminder, you're on mute, but we're going to take questions at the end, so just keep dropping them into the chat box. Most importantly, I want to thank our sponsors for whom an event like this would not be possible. Our presenting sponsor and gold partner, Accenture, who's proud to support local innovators, startups, and businesses in their digital transformation journeys. Thank you, everyone at Accenture. And I also would like to thank our silver sponsor, Appian. Thank you to both of you. Now, I'd like to introduce cloud expert and our panel moderator today, Mandy Peckham, Director of Federal Growth at Dcode. Mandy?
Thanks, Alex.
Hello,
everyone. I'm very happy to be here with you all today. As Alex said, my name is Mandy Peckham. I'm the Director of Growth and Client Engagement at Dcode. Dcode is a fantastic organization that is uniquely centered at the crossroads of emerging tech and helping federal clients with their innovation journey. This is something I'm very passionate about, and something I've had the pleasure of being a matchmaker for tech and federal clients in my 15 years supporting the federal agencies and nonprofits. I'm really honored to be moderating this panel and be joined by these amazing experts in cloud technologies. And also I wanted to highlight, as Alex mentioned, that there's a Q&A box. We really want this to be interactive. We have some prepared questions for the panel, but please keep dropping your questions in there as we want to talk about what you want to hear about too. So at this point, if the panel could please turn on their cameras, I'll introduce them by name and then ask them to give themselves more of a complete introduction and talk a little bit about their organization and what they're doing. So with us today is Rajeev Kaul, who is the Managing Director for US South Head of Cloud and Software Engineering at Accenture. We've got Michael Chasen, who's the CEO for Cloud Technologies, Inc. Robert Belson, who is the who's part of the Verizon Corporate Strategy group, focusing on cloud and edge programs. And then we've also got Dominique Del Molino, who's the Vice President for Technology and Innovation for Amazon Web Services, Worldwide Public Sector and Industry Business Units. All right, Rajeev, can we start with you? Would you like to speak a little more about yourself, and then we'll go around to the other panelists?
Sure, Mandy, thanks. So yeah, I'm Rajeev Kaul from Accenture. So just a little bit about Accenture first. So Accenture is one of the largest professional services organization globally. We've got about 540,000 people. So pretty large group of folks we have here. We have about 10,000 here in DC, and as mentioned earlier, very involved in trying to incubate and grow our startup and tech community here. So Accenture, we span sort of everything from strategy and consulting through technology and supporting business operations for some of the world's largest companies. So for me personally, so I look after our cloud and software engineering business and our people for our South Market unit, which includes the DC area and sort of extends down over, over to Texas. And this is part of our, what we call our cloud first initiatives, which is squarely focused on working with our clients to help maximize business value through cloud powered transformations, which we're going to talk a lot about today. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Rajeev. That was fantastic. Robert, would you like to go next?
Sure. First and foremost, Mandy, thanks for having me. Great to be here. I work for Verizon in our corporate strategy team, but I'm super excited to be here today because I've had the unique opportunity pretty much my entire time at Verizon to focus on our 5G Edge portfolio, which is essentially our mobile edge computing product line, bringing compute and storage closer to the edge of the network than ever before. And so as I think about cloud innovation, this is pretty much what I deal with every day. More specifically, our team was looking at how we develop a strategy to really engage this new customer group and the developer community that's so central to how cloud innovation gets done today. And so to that end, my team leads, or specifically, I lead our developer relations function. And this is so important to how cloud technology is evangelized, how it's adopted, how it grows. And so my charter is to work with customers day in, day out, designing their cloud native solutions, but more importantly, thinking about that enablement collateral and one-to-many modes of communication to engaging the developer community en masse, finding great partners to build integrations. And so super excited to be here and excited to contribute to the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. And Michael, would you like to go next?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Chasen. Previously, I was the co-founder and CEO of Blackboard, a large e-learning software company in the DC area. And I'm currently the co-founder and CEO of Class Technologies. We add teaching and learning tools to Zoom. Like many of you, I was home during the I was home during the pandemic, and I have 3 small children. And I saw that they were having trouble engaging with their classes being online. And I spoke with a lot of the teachers and I said, why are you having so much trouble engaging with the students? And they said, look, Zoom is great for lectures and it's great for group discussions, but a lot of what we do in the physical classroom, you can't replicate an online environment. We take attendance, we hand out assignments, we do tests or quizzes, we communicate one-on-one with the students, we have group presentations. So I got together with a group of developers that I'd worked with previously at Blackboard, and we developed technology that lets you replicate the physical classroom experience online in Zoom. And we're using cloud technology to help support all of that teaching and learning that can now help and take place in Zoom. So I'm very excited about today's discussion.
Wonderful. Thanks, Michael. You're so right. COVID changed everything. That's really fascinating. Last but definitely not least, Dominique, would you like to talk a little bit about yourself and what you're doing at AWS?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. My name is Dominic Del Molino, and I'm the Vice President for Technology and Innovation for Amazon Web Services worldwide public sector business. In that role, I have global responsibility for all of our solution architects and customer solutions managers who are helping customers, mostly in the public sector business, figure out how to take advantage of getting to the cloud and the innovations that are possible once you start to innovate and move your workloads there. So I love this kind of role. I love getting the technology in front of customers and showing them what's possible, what they can do. And in that role, I like to talk to folks about ways they can take advantage of those innovations. So great, happy to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Fantastic, thank you. And I think we also picked the same wall coloring behind us here with the same painter. All right, so we're going to jump right into questions. And again, encourage folks to put questions in the Q&A. But some of the panelists have already kind of talked a little bit about how COVID's changed things. But first question for you all, as a result of the pandemic, pushing businesses of all sizes to the cloud, were there any unexpected lessons learned, i.e. migrating to the cloud or working with clients on cloud adoption that emerged due to this massive spike in demand? And let's go ahead and start with Rajeev.
Yeah, so I think we can all agree last year was very interesting in a lot of ways. Michael kicked his company off. That sounds like a dire need that we had for that. We're at Accenture, we're very proud of the various initiatives we kicked off, both with our clients and internally. But one thing, that happened in the cloud space and really, IT in general is kind of to force the issue of getting things out to market. Years ago, enterprises, big companies, they'd be releasing applications every few months, and they've been adopting more agile methodologies, and it's gotten faster. But, you think about it, if you have to build a system in a week because, people won't get paid or they won't have childcare or won't be able to learn, you're going to figure out a way to do it. And the technology has sort of always been there. But this culture change sort of forced the issue and showed, even for these larger enterprises, what can be done, how fast things can move. And that's really what's surfaced. And, I'm hopeful, very optimistic this remains the status quo, because it shows us all, collectively how some incredible things can be done, and we're done, powered by cloud there.
Absolutely agree. Michael, I know this is kind of personal for you and class technologies. Did you want to add to anything Rajeev said?
Yeah, look, I actually think that what happened during COVID, especially when you're taking a look at utilizing online communication tools such as Zoom, was that the cloud infrastructure really had to operate at a scale far beyond what anybody had imagined in a relatively quick period of time. And the success of Zoom and the other online meeting tools, the fact that they were able to scale to such a degree, shows the power of cloud computing. Hundreds of thousands of teachers and millions of students all were able to continue their education online because that cloud infrastructure of communication worked and was able to scale during this pandemic. We increased usage 1,000% more. And that's the type of scalability that wouldn't have been possible if these were independent, localized systems running at the schools. It was only because they were able to leverage the power of the AWS cloud or Azure cloud infrastructure to instantly add more servers and continue to scale up as suddenly everyone was going online, that education was able to continue.
Absolutely. That makes a ton of sense. Robert, do you want to add anything to that?
Absolutely, and agree with everything that's said. Cloud consumption certainly has gone up a whole great deal, but as I think about maybe an unexpected lesson learned, I think a lot about this idea of contactless experiences. Everything as simple as a contactless checkout to immersive XR, otherwise known to some as the metaverse. I think a lot about how the cloud has empowered this opportunity for us to not only think about transformations within the cloud, but all of the technology surrounding it. And I think a great example is contactless checkout. If you're designing that solution, you don't just think about the cloud. Today, you may have focused also on the actual physical point of sale terminal. It's cloud and the associated hardware. But as you think about the future and where we're moving in a contactless world, well, why do you even need that point of sale system to begin with? Everybody has a smartphone. We're all connected to that digital world anyways. So what I think has been unexpected lesson learned from my end is not only how quickly I've been able to work with customers to spin up these agile solutions in the cloud, but how quickly everything surrounding the cloud has evolved with it.
That's a great point. I like that around the cloud and mentality. Dominic, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I'll add two things I think that were really interesting that we saw. The first was we had some customers who really had kind of been prepared in terms of getting themselves aware of what was possible on cloud. And those customers were able to move much more quickly and very quickly when they needed to deploy really important solutions. For example, we've had school districts who, their computer labs were closed. Students couldn't get in to do those stuff. And so they would use something like an application streaming protocol from the cloud to say, how do I make these engineering and design tools that are available in a computer lab available for all students who are working from home now or schooling from home? And that was really, really exciting to see. In addition, I think places and countries and organizations that needed to quickly stand up critical benefits and critical registration systems for vaccine distribution or for unemployment benefits were able to do so and take advantage of things like the increased security of the cloud. You can imagine you don't want these systems disrupted by bad actors who are trying to gain the system or get in there. And we could turn on things like web application firewalls, other things that made these systems solid, responsive, and while not necessarily pleasurable, at least an experience that people are now demand and expect when they're working online and looking for kind of commercial-like services from public sector style organizations. And was really gratified to see some of these organizations take advantage of that, go quick, go big, go safe, and that really, I think, something we all enjoyed.
Absolutely. Follow-on question to that, kind of pulling on the COVID pandemic thread. It's obviously that everything accelerated with COVID-19, including the need to migrate to the cloud. Whether it's within clients or your own organization, do you see that slowing down, staying the same, or even possibly going faster? And Robert, let's start with you.
I definitely see the acceleration here, especially as you think about what that next step for cloud is. Maybe you're already in the cloud and you're looking for that opportunity to drive increasingly immersive experiences. I mentioned the move to increasingly contactless. I think the move that goes alongside it is that desire to deliver that ultra immersive experience, because developers and architects, they don't just design for today. They're designing for corner cases of tomorrow. And so with that said, I've heard a lot about specifically innovations with respect to moving to the edge. Everyone talks about an ultra immersive experience, but easier said than done in terms of how you get there. And especially as you think about moving to the edge itself is an inherently ambiguous world, or term rather. Is it the device edge? Is it the network, the actual mobile network? Is it content delivery networks? I see a lot of the panelists nodding here. We all know this is an incredibly ambiguous term. And so what I've seen from customers is there's this desire to think about how can I accelerate my ability to differentiate as I deliver these ultra immersive experiences. And to that end, we've found that mobile edge computing has been such an important and valuable growth vector to these enterprises as they think about creating that differentiation.
Absolutely. Dominique, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think we're also seeing a shift. We saw a huge surge when lockdowns occurred and people were really having to work virtually. We suspect that's going to change as people re-enter the workplace or re-enter, more physical things. But there's that expectation now of, well, goodness, I still need to make sure that I have high accessibility and high security as part of the need there. And so I think we're going to see a shift. I think there are expectations that have been set. There was an earlier part of the question, has this accelerated things? And I think that's the case. The contactless kind of experience that people were, hoping to see. We've seen a 3 to 5 year kind of speed up in what was now, an expectation around digital access. And I do think that accessibility and security need is going to continue to increase. So we see more of a shift. Not a slowdown, not necessarily a speed up, but really a kind of a little bit of a change as people have said, okay, now that I know what's possible, how can I take advantage of these capabilities that the cloud can bring to do new and innovative things and to increase that accessibility and security of what is available? Absolutely.
Rajeev, I see you're nodding. Do you have some things you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. There's a other interesting angle to this, which is, we often talk around the technology and the technology architecture. There's a term that we've been using called the human architecture as well, right? Because part of being able to do all the stuff that Robert and Dom are just talking about, and even what Michael's put into place here, it's been a challenge for some of the larger companies out there that to set up organizationally and their talent, their operating model. And so by jumping in and what we've had to do over this past year and the acceleration and this sort of on-ramp onto the cloud now is forcing the issue. Well, you've better start to adjust your people and how are you going to do this, right? From a people operating model, human architecture, as we call it, a perspective. So that's an important thing to note there.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. That human architecture is a key piece. Michael, do you have some thoughts on that?
No. I think everybody's kind of summed up just all the trends that I've seen so far as well.
Okay, fantastic. Follow-up question then around that kind of people element. Obviously, cloud adoption and migration doesn't just touch your product and infrastructure, it impacts your workforce, like you were just talking about, Rajeev. So what are some of the things that clients or an organization would need to consider from a talent and culture standpoint to maximize their cloud value? Michael, do you want to start?
Yeah, it's funny. So, of course, Class Technologies was actually started during the pandemic. So we have built a fully remote company that even post-pandemic is not ever going to be meeting in an office. So even though, of course, we're providing a cloud-based solution, we ourselves are running on several cloud-based solutions. We actually, not only do we not have an office, we don't have a place to even put a server. So we really had to incorporate cloud technologies in every aspect of the technology we are deploying across the board. And it's important that that's both integrated so that all of our systems flow into each other, but that also the adoption of this technology is a key part of everything from onboarding to training to making sure that your own employees are utilizing this infrastructure you're putting in place. So it actually becomes very much part of the overall culture that you're utilizing a cloud infrastructure to deliver most of the results, whether it's everything from a sales or a UI design or product development. Everything we're doing is now in the cloud, and we just make sure that we're all those things are coupled, or at least loosely coupled together, and that our team knows that that's where our infrastructure exists and how to best utilize it. So it really does need to become part of that core culture of how you bring employees on board and how you train them up to do their job.
Absolutely. Dominique, do you have any thoughts about kind of that core culture and how you develop that?
Yeah, I think we've seen now that people are thinking about a new form of IT, they need to sometimes kind of remove constraints and think about the fact that they can be more innovative, be more responsive, be more inventive and quick in a quick way when they're on the cloud. And so, we really believe that. We've made a real commitment to making cloud training extremely available. And we made a commitment to, by 2025, train over 29 million people in cloud technologies and cloud skills, because we think it's that important. And it's just, when we see companies and organizations who now understand what's possible and the range of things they can do with cloud, their minds open up, and we're super impressed with what our customers have done and the way that they've deployed multiple kinds of cloud services to really get to quick solutions and really get to moving on to the next problem. So we're super excited about that.
Great. Robert, do you have some thoughts you'd like to add?
Absolutely. This whole area of cloud training is very near and dear to my heart as I think about leading our DevRel portfolio here at Verizon. And as I think about the future customer for cloud technology altogether, I think many of us can agree that the developer is becoming an increasingly important persona in this equation, not just because they play with the technology itself, but they're the ones implementing it on behalf of the enterprise and are the decision maker in many times in terms of what technology you're using, why, when, and how. And so the culture of developer relations, creating that fun, accessible, appetizing way of learning how a particular technology works is so important to building competency and fluency across your organization. And perhaps anecdotal evidence to highlight that is what a colleague once described to me as this 2-2-2 framework. So imagine one Friday evening, a developer wakes up or finishes the workday, goes on Twitter or Reddit, finds a really cool tutorial for some next-gen cloud technology. By the end of the 2 hours, they have a working app and they say, you know what, I want to learn a little bit more. So they spend the next 2 days building a slightly more involved app with their free time. And by that next Monday, they're pitching their boss for a 2-month project. That's the 2-2-2 framework I think about. And that only happens because the persona, otherwise known as a developer advocate, built that tutorial or Hello World program. And so to build those educational journeys, to build enablement collateral, there's two things that has to happen. If you're an enterprise providing the cloud technology, you have to invest in developer relations. It's so important. It's a growth vector. It's a force multiplier for innovation. And if you're the enterprise consuming cloud technology, you need to provide the bandwidth to allow developers to experiment for the sake of experimentation. That's why you have so many pay-as-you-go cloud environments. It's designed to experiment so that you have the capability and competency and fluency to innovate.
That's fantastic. Yeah, completely agree. And investing in those development relationships there. Rajeev, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, if those of you who may be familiar with Accenture at all, or even know some people that are part of our team here, you probably know that like learning generally is such a big part of our culture, and figuring out a way to reach 540,000 people around the world, to figure out how we're going to train them and ensure, especially in technology that's evolving so quickly, is really, it's both, an art and a science there. And so one of the things that, as part of these cloud transformations, though, we talked about human architecture and it, arguably being more important than the technical part of that. So we've been having to help our clients, as part of that journey and transformation. So maybe two ways I'll call out what we've been doing. So one is that, working as we'll work with a company on this transformational journey, both the technical and human side of it, we'll work sort of side by side with them and pair with them during this, transformational project, this initiative. So it's more of the, don't just give them the fish, but, being very deliberate in teaching them to fish. I mean, it's extremely important because they need to be set up for long-term success. And the other thing we've started doing more recently is taking the way that we've been evolving our own talent. Like I said, 540,000 people. We have about a little over 70,000 of them that are cloud certified. And so we have various initiatives and programs. We have a program called Cloud Native College to help people get to more of the modern capabilities, cloud native technologies, edge, etc. Now it takes very structured programs to reach the scale. So now what we've been doing is more and more sharing that with our clients and showing them how have we done it internally, so that they can take some learnings from that and take it to their teams as well.
That's fantastic. So building on kind of that best practices from a learning and building enablement and training perspective, Robert, I'm going to toss it back to you. What are some of the best practices that you've seen work for clients or within your organization to kind of help encourage that adoption?
I think to drive adoption, I've already talked about DevRel. That's a growth engine that provides the baseline, the foundational elements for that architect or developer team to feel comfortable. I'd say another important best practice is the, let's say, cloud enabler or cloud operator, is to think about working backwards from the customer. The customer has a series of requirements. You don't define what success is, they do. And so by working closely, and this is one of my favorite parts about DevRel today, is I get to play both developer advocate and solution architect on behalf of customers. And so when I work with enterprises and thinking about their transformation, specifically their move to the edge, I think a lot about what is success for you. And so I think what I've seen from a best practice perspective is make it as easy as possible, make it as exciting as possible, reduce the barriers to entry. And that often comes not only with having infrastructure blueprints, but making sure that you've defined those success metrics ahead of time, so you're always able to work backwards from the customer and figure out what success really means to them.
Absolutely, success metrics are key. Michael, what are you seeing, or is there anything you'd like to add to that in terms of kind of what Class Technology is seeing?
For us, it was a lot more basic. Can the schools get up and not crash when they suddenly have 10,000 students all taking an exam at the same time and all streaming the work? So like our client success really has to do with, does the cloud technology work and scale? And especially when you're looking at video, that's really just the high end of all cloud technology. So bandwidth intensive. And one of the things that Zoom does great is it allows up to 45 or so different video streams on the screen at the same time. And that's what really enables like classes, especially large classes, to be able to take place and be interactive. So the success for our clients has to do with, does that technology support the scalability that they need to really, again, replicate that physical classroom experience online?
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And it's a very tangible metric there to get behind.
Just not crashing is the metric.
Right. Absolutely. Dominique or Rajeev, do you want to add anything?
Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about how important it is for people to be able to take advantage of things. We think reliability is also certainly important here. Especially for some of these websites that we see customers deploying. They really need to be up 24/7 and available when people need them, when they need them. And so I think that's another important component of education on the skills here is how do you architect an application to take advantage of the high reliability you can get from many of these cloud services. And when you do that effectively, it's amazing that you're now just when you need to access something, it's available. And I think with the pandemic, we've seen a shift to this as well. People are, I need to know now. I need to know when I'm done, maybe working during the day. I need to get something, and when it's would have traditionally been off hours. And so, how do I make sure that the system I'm going to access is available? And so that's another skill area that I think we see people learning quickly when they get to cloud is how can I build a system that has that. Not only the responsiveness and security, but the availability that really needs to happen now, given that could be coming from anywhere at any time is kind of a new dimension of what we're seeing as a result of how the world's changed.
Absolutely. Availability is key. That's a great call out. Rajeev, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly here, this is really exciting. I mean, one of the I'd say one of the most exciting things really going on in technology today is really this sense of community. All of us here on this panel, on this call, probably many of the folks, listening, like we're all sort of in this together, and then if you think about, adoption and the various sets of challenges, there's challenges that, smaller companies like Class Technologies have, larger ones like Verizon have, but it's kind of like, focusing on your business and some of the availability challenges, security challenges, compliance things, in enterprises, this common tension between like business and IT. And oftentimes this sort of, foundational problems are being solved, right? If you kind of look at this, we're all in this together. Somebody may have, solved that elsewhere, right? And you can always reach out to this, broader community here to go see how did somebody else solve this problem that was a barrier for potential adoption, right? And sort of how the cloud community has embraced open source and, that continues on just in the way that we all work together. It's really exciting and fascinating, just even small and large companies kind of, we're all like working together,
Absolutely. I think the pandemic highlighted that even more so than normal. That's so true. So speaking about kind of the adoption and benefits, what is one of the benefits of cloud migration that tends to fall behind agility and savings is the ability to help companies cut their carbon footprints. What do you think are some of the ways that we could tie carbon footprint adoption to sustainability goals and best practices? Rajeev, do you want to go back to you for that?
Yeah, sure. It's something that's I definitely should be. I mean, the benefits are incredible. It should be talked about more, and it certainly will be. So we've actually done some research that I suggest folks take a look at called "The Green Behind the Cloud," and it basically has some figures and some interesting research in there talking about migrations to the public cloud and reducing CO2 emissions, by like 60 million tons. It's like taking 22 million cars off the road. So I mean, by no means is just that migration to the cloud trivial, but that's just in doing migrations. I think we really think that these environmental benefits and the skyrocket even more when you think about once you're there, the actual innovation that can be done once you're there, doing some powerful data analysis around areas like, material waste reductions, and so I think the cloud providers have done, AWS, for example, incredible job in terms of sharing their goals, even providing, I've seen like calculators, like online calculators for the carbon footprint of your systems before and after. And, you can go and make architectural level decisions using things like serverless technologies. And these can have, incredible impacts on the carbon footprint. So I think we're gonna see a lot more of this benefit. But it's really exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this transpires over the next few years.
And look, apparently we can all use cloud technology to reduce the carbon footprint just by not accepting Bitcoin, according to Elon Musk. So right there, you can already make an improvement.
Absolutely. Dom, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, a couple things. Like Rajeev said, it's something we're particularly proud of. We've done some studies to see how much benefit our customers can get by moving their on-premise hardware and infrastructure to the cloud. We found that our infrastructure is 3.5 times more energy efficient than the median surveyed enterprise data center. So right there, just moving to the cloud, you've become much more efficient. We've also found in that same study that when you do a task on AWS versus doing a task in your own data center, doing a task on AWS it can be done with almost a 90% lower carbon footprint, 88% lower carbon footprint when you do it on the cloud. And so right there, right there, there's an immediate benefit, and we're working to find some ways to help customers be able to demonstrate and show that when they're on the cloud, they're able to take that carbon footprint reduction and demonstrate it as well. We've done it internally as well. We have our own, Amazon's climate pledge is well known, and we're on our path to get to net zero carbon by 2040 as an entire company, not just AWS, but all of Amazon. We have over 90 renewable energy projects. We're in the midst of building out this capability to essentially power almost 750,000 average US homes in terms of how much renewable energy power that we're investing in our own company to do this. So we're committed, we're walking the walk on this ourselves, and we're excited to make sure that our data centers are as efficient as possible, and then customers move there, they can take advantage of that carbon footprint reduction.
Absolutely. That's amazing. Robert, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Absolutely. You asked specifically about best practices, and I think what's so great from a customer perspective is best practices for just building a cloud environment that is inherently resilient, in fact, often drives towards sustainability. And in the cloud world, we often refer to it as something like the well-architected framework as an example. And we already talked about serverless, Rajeev, you brought that up. Great way to not have to manage a fleet of virtual machines. I'd say another important technology as you think about reducing just your overall cloud footprint is this idea of auto scaling. It's been around for quite some time, but at its simplest, at the simplest level, it's this idea that you probably don't need your largest instance fleet running at all times 24/7. An application you want running 24/7 from an availability and durability perspective. But do you really need that maximum capacity running 24/7? No. And you shouldn't have to pay for it either. And that's exactly what the cloud provides. So you reduce that footprint without compromising on things like durability. Your data and application will always be there, but you only need to have an application running, or then a volume of applications running, the underlying compute running, that matches the number of users you're going to actually see at any given point in time. And these cloud technologies have made it easier than ever to facilitate that. So from a best practices perspective, I'd say if you have a strong architect team, your well-architected framework will already drive your team to strong sustainability goals and metrics.
That's so true, especially in the auto scaling piece of that. We actually just got a question from the audience. So if everyone's okay, I'm going to pivot to that. Kevin asked, how has the growing threat of ransomware affected the way enterprises think about moving towards cloud? Do you see increased urgency to make the move after national events like the recent Colonial Pipeline attack? Michael, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's such a horrible story, but I don't know if moving to the cloud actually directly affects that. I mean, look, some software in the cloud is just as vulnerable as localized software. There may be the thesis or the theory is that if it's cloud-based software, you have a dedicated team that's an expert in it, and they can keep up the security protocols and other things that may get lost when people are trying to just manage their own local installation. So I do think that that is a benefit. But look, I think there is still a possibility that people could end up taking over cloud-based solutions and do ransomware there. So I think that's just a serious issue that we're going to have to. Security is always serious, whether it's actually in the cloud or whether it's installations that are deployed locally. But I do think that there is some advantage in the cloud just because you have experts that run and then usually keep up on the security perspective.
Absolutely. Dom, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. I did want to point out that given the president's executive order on this, I think the country is going to be taking some important steps to make sure, in particular the United States, that the agencies can modernize their IT systems and protect the country against cyber threats like the recent ones we've seen. It's certainly a top priority for us, and we're ready and able to support the Biden administration in particular as it works with private sector on sharing information and kind of bolstering the overall response to some of these cybersecurity threats.
Absolutely. Rajeev?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just quickly pile on. It is while the steps are being taken, and it certainly is very beneficial to have like an AWS or cloud provider and their world-class security team. There is shared responsibility there that you still the companies that are deploying their stuff, they still have an obligation to to ensure they're meeting the right level of security, and for some of whatever their mission critical applications must be. So I think you're going to see the whole space evolve. It's evolved significantly over the last few years. It's very complicated and scary at times, but it's going to be a team effort from everybody involved.
Absolutely. Robert, any thoughts on your side?
I think I would just say that these types of events have really highlighted the need for increasingly distributed applications. You don't want to have a single attack vector that if you're compromised, your entire application footprint is compromised. And the best way to do that is, again, just following best practices in cloud that are being instilled day in, day out to architects today. You decouple your applications to make it harder than ever to just attack a single monolith, and then physically distributing your application. So not just logical decoupling of having all these different services connected to one another, but physically distributing them across all the different data centers today, I think further reinforces the need for things like mobile edge computing, having the security of the mobile network behind you, but more importantly, just distributing that attack vector so it's harder for bad actors to fully compromise an application will be increasingly important in the years to come.
Absolutely. And pulling on that security thread a little bit, everyone wants their migration to the cloud to be cost effective, secure, and agile. But are the three created equal, and how would you rank them in your estimation? And Robert, I'll go back to you.
I think I said this before, and I'll certainly say it again. Regardless of the cloud migration you're looking at, I certainly wouldn't be ranking the three. I'd ask the customer what's most important to them, and then use the customer insights and work backwards from the customer to design an architecture that meets their needs. And so certain cases, maybe industrial IoT, you're going to really want to make sure you have security, depending on the confidentiality associated with the data of those sensors. But what I found today, especially in the pandemic, is agility has been really important. Perhaps not the most important, but very important. And most specifically, the question I've been hearing a ton is, for insert technology here, whatever this new cloud technology is, can I use it today without having to learn a new language, a new framework, a new skill? Is it actually easy to implement? Is it push button? Can I launch it quickly? Is there visibility in what's actually going on in this new technology? And so from what I've seen, I think agility has been really, really important. But in terms of ranking a currency of the cloud migration, I really turn to the customer and say, hey, what's most important to you? And work backwards from there.
Rajeev, I see you nodding. Do you have something you would like to add?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree. We have to, and that's our approach as well. We need to understand exactly what is the priorities that our clients have. If I had to, just looking at, in retrospect, sort of what you see, if I had to rank them, I probably would do the security, agile, and cost-effective sort of in that order, the cost savings. And based on the sort of aggregating what we hear from our clients, it probably boils down to this. If you fail in security, and why that's top, like the damage is huge, right? The liability there can, to your reputation, to your bottom line, could potentially be too big to recover from. So that can simply rise to the top. Now for the other two, maybe what we're seeing is a push for more of the business agility, especially when it comes to transformations and cloud transformations. And if you look at it, if you can start to, if you're going to plot this out in a graph and you can increase business agility, start to introduce new revenue streams, new products to market, especially post-COVID in certain industries like travel, for example, which have had to figure out how they're going to reinvent themselves for some of those organizations. You can start to drive more profitable growth, right? And so it can offset just the cost savings portion of it and set you up for future success. So if you had to do it, you have to understand what our clients are looking for. But if you had to do it, kind of looking at together, be security, the business agility, and cost savings and cost effectiveness in that order.
Makes sense. Michael, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think everyone else has hit upon all the major points.
Okay, Dom, anything for you?
Yeah, what's the internet meme? Why not both? Right? So I like the way Rajeev framed it. I think another thing to think that we have customers ask us about and are concerned about is, time is money. And so in many ways, this kind of agility and speed argument speaks to the element of cost, because we need to get something done quickly and we can't afford to take the time that we may have had to do in the past to procure equipment, install equipment, test equipment, and make sure it'll work for us. We need to move in an agile manner and very quickly. And so I think sometimes those together can get you to the cost argument. I think also, having security is that kind of another way to save time, right? If I have to deal with a security event, that's time I'm not spending and making sure my service is available and providing what our customers need. So it's something, is something we take very seriously to make sure that, the platform itself has security built in, so our customers can feel confident, comfortable that they can move quickly and get to the service they need to have. So we think there's significant value there. I'll add that, some customers, though, they start from the cost perspective. They're trying to maybe get out of a box where they're not able to invest in innovations like they'd like to. And so they're trying to see if moving to cloud will give them that cost savings. And so that's often a starting point for many customers. And, we continue to make price cuts on all of our services on a regular basis. It's one of the few things where a resource is actually getting cheaper over time, and we like to pass that on to customers. So they're able to reinvest in being more agile and taking advantage of more security features. So we do think sometimes it starts with cost from the customer's mind, but I think, like Rajeev, we like to pivot them and think about, what can you do now that you couldn't do before? And we can together do it more quickly than you were able to do it before. So let's get to that value faster because we think that unlocks some of those cost savings that people might be searching for.
That's a great point. Getting to that value. Along those lines, I guess, how do you measure innovation and success in a cloud migration? And Michael, I'll start with you.
Look, I think when it's actually easy to look at success. If you're able to do a cloud migration and move to any technology and not disrupt any of the business flow or practices that you've already implemented, it's a success. It's very, very simple. More so, if you not only are able to move to a cloud migration and implement your business strategy, any business continuity, but also then improve the ability for your workers or clients to then access that infrastructure, which is a lot of the reason why people actually then move to cloud technology in the first place, and that's even better. So it really has to do with just uninterrupted business, and then does it actually allow you to scale to a way that you weren't previously?
That makes a ton of sense. Thanks, Michael. Robert, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I think I would say beyond the fairly obvious metrics that were discussed, did it work? Did it disrupt business processes? Was it highly available? Has it continued to be secure? I think a lot about the second order effects that it could enable. So it depends what exactly that migration entailed. So if that first phase was just moving to the cloud itself, I would argue that what constitutes a success is now having that enablement platform to do something that you couldn't do before. So it's not just about the success of the migration. I would argue it's from a business process perspective, what did you enable that you couldn't do before? So for an example, the contactless experience, you probably can't enable with on-premise infrastructure. But secondarily, did moving to the cloud allow you to do something that you couldn't do before? Are you now able to take advantage of a managed computer vision service or real-time serverless architectures or event streaming service that wouldn't have been possible? So I'd say you have to also look at the second order effects and opportunities as well to constitute success.
That makes a ton of sense, Robert. Rajeev, did you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, the only thing I'd really add, I mean, these are excellent points. Is this the notion of sort of measuring the value and, sort of accelerating as much as you can, bringing value in. So not the kind of big bang approach, but trying to drive value as much as you can and measuring it, right? Especially in these larger kind of big cloud migration, cloud transformation that a lot of companies, larger companies have been doing. They often spend millions of dollars and don't have anything to show for it after some time. So try to pull things in as much as you can and try to get incremental value, and certainly, most importantly, measure exactly what it is that you're doing, whether it's wherever you are in your journey. If you're just migrating and looking for some cost savings, or trying to add some of the new capabilities, like Robert was saying, in terms of what can you do now, right? How do you quantify that? How you measure that? That goes a long way.
Absolutely, those metrics are key. Dom, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is when customers get to the cloud, what often happens is they start to have more room for innovation, perhaps because they're no longer having to do some of that undifferentiated heavy lifting. They're starting to see some of the cost benefits of the fact that they can scale down and scale up and only use the resources they need when they need them. And what I see as a measure of success is many of our customers, their IT budgets were heavily weighted toward O&M and maintenance. And what we start to see is, and by the way, some of the numbers are almost scary, like 90% of the budget on O&M and 10% on new capability and innovation. And so as a measure of success, we see customers starting to change that dynamic, where they're able to apportion less money on O&M activities because they can offload or take advantage of the things that the platform provides for them and reinvest that into innovative activities that they couldn't do before. And so that's a measure I see of success, is when a customer starts to kind of change that allocation, where they're able to allocate more time, more resources, more budget to innovative ideas that they can try out too. They don't necessarily have to, make a huge, investment in those things. They can experiment more and deploy more things that are extremely innovative. We're seeing customers who are starting to remove barriers between systems, and since they're both on the cloud, they can integrate them. So, moving someone from, maybe applying for an unemployment benefit to a job placement service, right? How does that flow work? And is there an innovative way that they can do that? And so the inventiveness we see from our customers and how they can reallocate and reapportion that budget spend toward those activities is super exciting.
That's great. Completely agree. It's exciting to see those trends towards innovation. And that actually tees up my next question perfectly, Dom. So thank you for that. So let's look ahead. What are some of the cloud tech innovation startups or trends that are relatively new post-COVID that you're really excited about and would recommend that our attendees check out after this webinar? And Dom, I'll go back to you since you teed that up so perfectly.
Well, I'm the technology guy. So for me, there's a lot of like, oh my gosh, stuff that's coming that, now is available on the cloud that I find extremely fascinating. I think, one of the things I'm super excited about is the many different ways we're allowing developers to take advantage of the cloud. We heard several people talk about DevRel and some of the neat ways to do things. So for example, we announced yesterday a new way to deploy containers to the cloud. It's called Amazon App Runner. And yet another way to make it easy for someone to package up an application and deploy it to cloud. And we offer many different choices in that space. So that's definitely one I would suggest that people check out. I think another thing that we're seeing is just super innovation from our partners. We're enabling so many different kinds of machine types in the cloud. Most recently, the ability to do Mac OS in the cloud, right? So a unique capability to test out some things for different platforms there as well. So that's another one I'd recommend some people check out. And then finally, if you haven't checked out some of the things we're doing in security space, I would make sure that you revisit some of those things and see what we've done with Guard Duty and Security Hub, because now you can be more safe and secure when you try out these things, and they're easy to engage. So I would do those three things. I would look at the new ways we can deploy containers. I would look at some of the new instance types we're making available, and I would also look at some of the security options that may be new to some people.
Great. Robert? Oops, sorry, Michael, did you want to say something?
Look, I was just going to build on what we just said a little bit, though. I actually think one of the greatest and most exciting things about what's happening in the cloud is actually the next generation cloud technology. So take, for example, what we do with Zoom. We took the Zoom infrastructure and their platform, and we added teaching and learning tools onto it utilizing the Zoom SDK. The Zoom actually is coming out not only with the software development kit, SDK, but also a bunch of add-ons as well. So now there are dozens of companies that are popping up, creating add-on tools, building on that Zoom cloud infrastructure. So it's not dissimilar from what happened with Salesforce. When Salesforce came out with their Salesforce app, there are now hundreds of third-party Salesforce tools all building on top of it. So what I'm actually most excited about cloud computing isn't this first generation of technology that moves to the cloud. It's then all the developers and startup companies that build on top of that first generation for add-ons or extending the APIs or capabilities of the products, and then really can start getting more creative and creating more point solutions and creating a whole network of additional applications that are built on top of that first level cloud infrastructure. So I'm really excited about the creativity, the startups, and the development that's going to be built on top of this V1 cloud infrastructure that's now propagated.
That's such a great point, Michael. Thank you. Completely agree. Robert, did you want to add to that?
Absolutely. I'll add two things into the mix here. And I don't think I could really be here today from Verizon if I didn't at least mention 5G. I see 5G in the cloud as so inextricably linked. And as one of the things that encourage the audience to check out, mobile edge computing today on AWS wavelength. Really fantastic technology. It allows developers who have no knowledge whatsoever of how a cellular network actually works to deploy applications to the network edge to drive those ultra immersive experiences. Highly, highly recommend you check that out. But secondarily, and perhaps even more interesting, as I look towards the future, I've already opined on the idea of the metaverse. I'll keep that theme going. How do we enable things like the metaverse? I think about something called application orchestration. And for those of you who aren't developers, at the highest level, it's the brains of how applications control individual components. Do I increase the size of my application? Do I decrease the size of my application, otherwise known as horizontal scaling? And today, how that works at the highest level is applications respond reactively to what they're seeing. Oh, I've exhausted the memory of my compute instance. I have to scale up. Oh, I've run out of CPU or compute cycles. I need to scale up. Now imagine this world. You've all heard about 5G. You've heard about the latency and the throughput, but let me add another currency into the mix, specifically network programmability. So imagine a world where you no longer only need application metrics guiding application decision-making, but the network is now an asset in how you program applications. The network can proactively highlight potential bottlenecks, potential issues, and in turn drive scalability. And I think that's going to be so important as you think about the application of the future. The network has an opportunity to become an asset. The network provides you an opportunity to deploy applications, and the network becomes a new growth vector for enterprises as they think about their cloud innovation.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I love that the network becomes an asset there. Rajeev, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'm still digesting what Robert said there. That's pretty interesting. But I think everybody touched on this. It's Michael, I think you put it really well, right? Build this ecosystem, building on top of it, sort of this community. And I think that the 5G point you just made is playing right into it. Like that whole notion I kind of touched on earlier, that we're all working together and building on top of stuff, right? Building, other developers will be building solutions using, class technologies. They've already been doing it with AWS. So that is just, I think we've all sort of touched on it in some way. Like, that's just really exciting, and hopefully folks can take it away. And just, I think the last thing is, and I mentioned it earlier, but I'll just mention it again, is just keep a lookout. The sustainability is such a big thing for everybody these days, individuals, companies, and it's really become a big focus, in IT in terms of and what cloud can do for that. So I did want to make sure I mentioned that as well.
Absolutely, that sustainability is key for sure. So we're almost out of time, but I just want to ask the panel one other real quick question is, when you look at the state of innovation in cloud technology, what would be, and you may have already hit on it, but I'd love for you to reiterate it, what would be the one thing you'd want this audience to take away? And Michael, I'd like to start with you.
Look, I think that the takeaway is more specific to the times. I believe that COVID has changed everything. It's actually sped up every industry by 5 to 10 years or even more. Now, right now, we're all focused on kind of just getting out of the pandemic, so our heads are down and we're not really seeing what the long-term effect are. But the fact that now everybody orders every single restaurant meal online, people no longer go to theaters, or in education, the fact that there have been hundreds of thousands of teachers and millions of students all trained in online learning, and all of these are cloud infrastructure technologies behind them. I believe the world has not only forever sped up the adoption of this technology, but it is forever changed. And the innovation that you're going to see coming off of cloud technologies in the next 2 years, or quite frankly, even 1 year, I think is going to surpass all the innovation we've seen out of the last decade. So I think that the world is getting ready for significant change, and all of that is based on deployed cloud technology. And I think the future is looking good.
That's exciting. Rajeev, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think just some of the things we tell our clients. Maybe I'll just share here quickly as a takeaway. Cloud has been viewed historically as like this data center in the sky, basically, right? And as we can see as examples here, it's now the way to run your business and the way to run it efficiently and effectively, right? It's the only way to do it if you're a smaller company, right? That's just natively how you were born, like Michael's company. But even the larger companies, this is the way that you do it efficiently and effectively. And it's going to become, 20 years ago, we would use terms like internet and .com, and we don't use that anymore, right? That's what we're going to see in the next few years with this word cloud. It's just going to be the fabric of everything.
I love that. Robert?
Not sure I can beat that, but maybe I'll add 2 pieces. First and foremost, if you're, regardless of whether you have embraced the cloud or you're operating the cloud itself, invest in your developers, invest in developer communities, embrace the culture of DevRel. That has been such an important growth vector to driving agility, and I hope to see that that culture continue to proliferate. And then secondarily, I think we can all agree that the cloud is moving faster than ever. And as organizations think about their overall cloud strategy, they ought to consider where 5G networks and the mobile edge plays in their strategy in order to drive those ultra immersive experiences, those contactless experiences, and how we live in this post-COVID world.
Excellent. Thanks, Robert. I know I'm going to do some research on DevRel now after this. Dom?
Yeah, I think for me, it really is impressive how secure you can be when you go to the cloud. And I think the folks are really coming to understand that if I want to go quick and I want to go big, and I want to be safe while doing it, to me, there's been an increased ability to understand that when you're in the cloud, you're just more secure. There are less attack vectors, less things you have to worry about. So you can focus on innovation. And that's what we see from our customers and our partners. They're able to take advantage of the wide range of services that are available. I'm like Robert, I love the idea with 5G. It's not just, the cloud is not just another data center somewhere, it's everywhere. And with something like 5G, you can deliver amazing services at the point where customers want them. And so, this is an innovative new thing we're seeing customers experiment with. So again, my big one is it's safe and secure to get to the cloud. So you have the aperture opened up for the ability to innovate with such a wide range of services that, we're just impressed and excited to see what our customers do with them.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to our panel, Robert, Michael, Rajeev, Dom, really appreciate it. We'll be posting a recap of this conversation on DC Inno soon. So don't hesitate to reach out to all of us with any questions, and have a wonderful afternoon. And thanks again to our presenting partner, Accenture. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.